Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with, I believe, the 37th episode of Cultist Simulator, the Dancer DLC, playing as Margaret Zell. Now, it has been a little while between recordings, so I'm going to take a minute here to just review things. We have 2 summons on the table, which will be going away in a minute, and of course we are looking for a site on the continent already. Our work verb, we're working on a commission, which means I'm probably going to have to go to the Gaiety, if not immediately after. Certainly I'll need to go before I'm able to resummon. We're exercising. I think that must mean we've got... Oh, no. I was thinking that there must have been some kind of a sickness if I was doing exercise, so I may be a little lost as to why I'm using my study verb in this way. That or we already cured the disease. Because of its 27 seconds. I do remember we got lucky with a number of vitality. And again, my memory is not always the best for this sort of stuff. We're clearing out a fascination. I suspect we may need to... Well, no, I guess we don't need to go. We don't need to go back, but I don't think it would hurt to keep going through the white door. We are exalting Porter. I think that is the last exaltation I need to do. Sylvia was already at it, so Sylvia's a skin twister, and then Yzabet, I'm pretty sure was our first, but I'd just like to find her to be sure. Sorry, I wanted to try and make this Monday an exception in terms of being a little more higher energy. There we go. But it is good to make sure I know what I'm doing here. And then we were looking for sites on the continent. I believe we're forced to now because we've cleared out the ones that we were looking for. I may still sort of do them as they become available, because if I recall correctly, the plan was 22 seconds from now, we will sort of use the percussagant and the hint to talk to each other and then do our summoning sort of as they're available. But... a lot can happen, right? There's a number of reasons why I may want to, just send people off to an expedition or otherwise use the resources I have available. One reason might be I want to try and cure my reputation, although we don't have any evidence after us right now. So, and then another thing that would be nice would be to turn in the commissions. We've got one on Lantern, and we'll be finishing this current one on Grail, so we'd actually be able to just clear out all of the work and get the cooldowns running. But again, preserving the summons is the higher priority. One last thing, which isn't directly related to what's going on the board, is I sort of feel like I should have a bit more momentum than I really do on this. So we've performed one of the sendings, but there certainly can be more. And we're making our way through the continent. I actually don't remember exactly how many steps there are in our various dances, but I will need to go to the Ecdysis Club at some point to sort of prepare for the next level. Although, we'll certainly need to, we'll have to explore on the continent for a while. So I think that's going to be how we spend most of our time for the next little bit. We've got everybody in who we want to. We'll eventually move up some of the hangers on, but they give me an option right now, and they're not really necessary for my plans. It is a decent enough time for a little bit of a breather as we get the summons back and work out our next set of targets. And I have a couple of books that I can read, or actually maybe just the one now that I think of it. Not even. The Concursum Diaries are closed off to me. In a pinch, I would be able to learn Aramaic, but I don't think I've actually learned Aramaic from a book in a while, and that would be kind of fun. So we'll see where it all goes, but I definitely have enough information to get my turn started, and we'll basically just see what comes up as the as time goes by. Some of my actions for the next few turns will probably be determined by what the passage of time brings us, as opposed to what what the individual verbs give us. This was my past, but now I'm changed. These are my garments, which I set aside. Here is my skin, but it is loaned to me. Here is my name, which is only a blindfold. Here is the wood, where we strangle the light. Here I was, and here I am not. Porter, like a spider, is found in the most unexpected places. All right. I think at some point I need to work out where my, where my placement's going to be, but right now we're gonna keep our summons on ice. I'm ready to grow stronger. Use this lesson learned with your strength skill. Ah, yes. Okay. Actually, sorry, I was mistaken. I wasn't trying to generate it. I was preserving it. So we can do the same here. Again, there's not a whole lot of use for the study verb right now, and this is basically the same as a free turn, so we're in good shape there. Now there's a funny thing about. Oh no, never mind. I was thinking that I might actually be able to get away with attempting a summoning. I think the funny thing about it is that if the summoning resists, you're more or less guaranteed to have trouble at work. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like the timings. I sort of feel like the timings work out that way. So I was thinking that what might be the case is I would have just that hair of, like, so we're at 59.3, so we wouldn't have enough time, but I was just thinking I might have just a little bit of time in which I could still try and summon the percussivant and go back to the Gaiety. But in this case here, we'll just go to the Gaiety. We'll try and start the summoning as close to the performance being finished as we can. And if we do get, resistance, then, it's unfortunate, but we work with what we've been given. And then in the meantime, going through the white door, there's a number of different things that I can try and do through the white door. I don't really need the vitality right now, but that always is a nice side effect. But what really works for me as far as the white door is concerned is that it can sometimes give me an influence. And when it comes to resummoning the percussivant, sometimes really just having a influence is enough. It doesn't even have to be a specific one. So actually, in theory, I might be able to just throw the glimmering at the problem now that I think of it. But one way or the other, that's another. That's going to be another factor in terms of what I consider when it comes time to go through the different doors. Right, this place merits closer investigation. The Vanderschaft collection. So we'll read these as we go through them as we start using them for expeditions. Right now, we're just going to take advantage of the pause to get a few more sites. Little wars, great intrigues, cryptic priesthoods, mystic crimes. All past now, but what traces did they leave? And I don't think I read this. So the stage awaits, hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and stamp the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. Nothing, my words cease like sand in a glass. So one consideration here, we do expect to have an opportunity to do a special performance, but this is one of these points where I would want to decide whatever creature I'm not going to do the summoning for should be the one that I start the talk with, because it's potentially the case that in 4.7 seconds we may be able to summon something. We'll see how it turns out. Okay, so we do have a chance to do a special performance. Turns out that the Dread was going to generate anyway. I think that's the first time I've seen that happen. At least the first time I remember it happening. So there was a suggestion from someone saying that it can pop up a second time. It may also have been a change, because I believe there has been a patch that's been released since I released the last video, or recorded the last video rather. But we don't plan on generating Dread, so it's not too much of a worry. We do have Fascination, so in 58 seconds, depending on the what happens behind the white door, we may need to worry about that. The answer, if I do get Fascination, will be to use that with something like the Sunset Rite to try and resummon the Percussagant, but we won't plan for it quite yet because it may not be something we need to worry about. I'm a listen package of flesh and blood. Tonight they'll notice that. And I'm ready to grow stronger still. We won't actually use it, but I have it. We will eventually start using the study verb to upgrade the secret histories, but I have other plans at the moment. I felt other eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. Too gaudy for my tastes, but I can sell it in the second-hand market. So just taking a look at the state of things, we've got 120 seconds for the Gaiety Theatre. Now, if I recall correctly, having a summoning resist us, I think that might be a minute. If it is a minute, then, essentially each summoning we do runs the risk of being something that causes trouble for us at work. But my feeling is that even with something like Dancing at the Gaiety, we probably don't want to let the real world, the day-to-day, stop us from pursuing something that's higher. So you usually don't play something like Cultist Simulator, so you can you can stay at your day job. Okay. Interesting. This isn't a matter for work, but I could study it to increase my passion. I don't know if I've ever seen that tooltip, but I believe we need knock here, so it's just an invocation, so we'll use the Igavine Rite. The Percussagant, merciless and merry, heart will bring it, edge will constrain it. So if it's not clear, I don't think I've ever explained this, but if it's not clear entirely what's happening with this resummoning, this comes back down to the question of understanding the game through the aspects. Now, again, everybody's going to have their own ways of going through Cultist Simulator. In fact, I think, I won't say who it was. It's not because it's a bad thing. It's someone who I quite respect, who knows far more about this game than I ever will. But she'd said that it was interesting to watch me play just because of what seemed to be just a very analytical approach to it. Which is very different from the way that she does, and it's kind of funny because I do actually like the story, and I do like the text and the lore, and I know it's not necessarily an approach. My approach to that stuff on a broadcast may not quite be to everybody's taste, but I hope that it at least comes across that I do enjoy this game as a narrative game, and I do enjoy this game for thinking about how it sort of relates to a lot of the real world influences that it has. But it is very true that my natural tendency for a lot of things is to just sort of think about how the parts work together, to sort of tinker with it almost mechanically. And you may sort of detect, particularly if you've watched a few different of the... I actually really like that somebody kind of referred to these playlists as seasons. I actually think that's kind of a fun way of looking at this. But it is fair to say, right, that I in some senses you can see almost a resistance to my nature when I say that as enjoyable as Cultist Simulator is, you want to think a little bit more than just mechanically trying every combination of cards, because, of course, there's just so many of them that, no disrespect to the interaction with the cards, but it's certainly, there's just more to it. There's more for enjoyment. Although, if that's how you want to spend your time and you enjoy it, but don't let me tell you how to play otherwise. But with that in mind, it is kind of fair to say that the observation was an interesting one, because of course I'm only ever going to know how I play this game. I tend not to watch a lot of streams or Twitch broadcasts. If I see somebody playing it, I'll definitely host them, and I want to be nice and hang around. But I'm kind of a write-only broadcaster, which I realize isn't a good thing, right? It's a little bit like writing, right? You expect the people who are writing stuff to be reading a lot more than they're writing. But in any case, that digression aside, the insight that tells you that you can sort of almost, bootstrap a Percussagant is the fact that a ritual, contrary to the opinions of some of the writers of various books, right? There are certainly characters in this world, in this game, who, well, maybe the characters aren't in the game other than through their writings, but have very strong opinions as to the right way in which you can perform something. Which, of course, the fact that these people are probably the object of fun is very much aligned with my own interests. But what's clear here is that you have a certain number of aspects required for summonings, and that depending on what your ritual is, what you have to sacrifice will sometimes, well, it will change, and sometimes you can sort of angle that ritual towards your advantage. So, for instance, when it says, heart will bring it, edge will constrain it, well, a percussagant has 8 heart and 8 edge, which is in fact sufficient for summoning it. And then if you want to resummon it, the one element that you're missing is knock, but because the summon actually already contains the 2 elements that it requires to, 2 aspects, 2 principles that it requires to be brought in, you actually get kind of a free slot. And so what this insight leads to is not actually just on resummoning a percussagant, but it actually leads you to some ways that you can be a little creative in terms of getting rid of some of the influences that you don't want. So for instance, if you have a dread or a fascination, a really wonderful example here would be, okay, I've got a season of despair now. Let's say that I had a dread that got picked up. And I'd say, okay, let's say we're at 2, right? And then there's another dread sitting on the board. And I'm like, okay, well, the dream slot, that's taken up. Well, maybe I can try and get rid of it. Oh, but then I need contentment. Oh, there's no contentment on the table. Well, I can try and get contentment. Oh, wait, but in 48 seconds, the dread's going to be picked up. So can I get that contentment in 48 seconds? And then, you look at it and maybe you'd be saying, oh dear, it looks like this is a game over. I don't have any way of getting contentment before, that last one's going to be picked up for the dread. Actually, I think you might get 1 more minute after it. But anyways, you get the idea, right? You can construct a situation in which you know how to deal with the dread, but the circumstances are such that you cannot access your contentment in time. Well, again, and this is a theme I really like in Cultist Simulator, dread is not just a terrible, malevolent force that will always be something that causes you harm. It has great potential for harm. It is something that you probably want to minimize, but dread is something that you can employ towards your rituals and other things. And so in this sense here, because we have the Gavin right, we've already got the heart and the edge for a percussagant, we would actually be able to use the dread inside the ritual, because the sunset right, also the right of the map's edge, would use influence as something to be consumed, even if we didn't necessarily need to summon the percussagant or whatever else we were summoning. It's a way that we would be able to give up we'd be able to give up the dread. The same trick would work with fascination. The only thing it wouldn't work for would be notoriety, because of course notoriety is a reputation. It's not an input into rituals. Although I always wondered whether or not it would ever be something that you would imagine. Like, it's obviously something you wouldn't want to be easy to get rid of through rituals, but I wonder if there's some way that you could make it fit in terms of thinking that your reputation allows you to do certain things, right? The fact that you have a reputation is in fact a way that you are able to perform tasks that others don't. Because you can sort of think in creative worlds, right? If you are well known, if you have a reputation, if you have acts, like basically reputations can lead to certain contacts. I think there are some things that do, if they don't rely on notoriety, they generate notoriety. Sorry, I feel like there is an interesting thing about reputation which is escaping my memory right now, but one way or the other, I do think there's something kind of interesting about the idea of saying that, you can actually see it both ways, right? If you're notorious, you may actually find it more difficult to accomplish certain things. But you can also sort of see how having a certain reputation would... Well, I'm sorry, one of the ways that you can see this actually would be in painting, I suppose. But when it comes down to the rituals, whether or not that reputation would affect anything, one of the things I could say is that while you could sort of see inside of Cultist Simulator, and sorry, this is obviously not where I had intended to go, but I think it's an interesting thought to follow. One of the things that is relevant is the other creative aspect, right? So if you sort of think of the ambition is sort of the noble pursuit, right? The great work, or that really, as I always sort of say, almost that sort of defining thing you want to do. It's hard to say something like painting isn't associated with that. It's in fact, in response to one of the comments last week, we're talking about how the old version of painting used to be one of the most lucrative paths that you could go down. And of course, it's a little funny for a game which sort of talks about how the real world could be quite hostile to your, some of your deepest and most cherished and personal ambitions, and the tension between trying to achieve them and still being able to sort of work in the real world. It was sort of funny that painting, which is sort of this manifestation of creativity, was such a profitable way. And this is, of course, one of the reasons why painting was changed. But there is something kind of interesting about the fact that you have painting, which is associated with it, right? You can also generate esoteric art. You can have these things which sort of touch very powerfully on this special world. And it's funny that the reputation, what I've been talking about here, like the ability to do things that others don't, certainly your reputation does allow you to achieve a certain amount of commercial success. But the reputation is something that is attached to the mundane world, right? Reputation can be a side effect. If you follow up on one of those peculiar rumors, you generate notoriety. As you start completing vaults, you gain notoriety. But in the end, the actions that you take in terms of things such as summons or your ability to actually achieve your ambition, all of that is sort of left aside. None of that can sort of touch the mantis. And I don't know, I find that sort of interesting. It's stuff that I kind of like thinking about. But in any case, the reason why I spent the time talking about the percussicant was, again, it's just the insight from it is just to say that there are cards that do in fact have, let's say, 2/3 of the ingredients that you require. And because in this single entity, you've got the heart and the edge, it is actually possible for you to, kind of use certain rituals as a bit of a dump every once in a while. There are other rituals that can sort of do things for you as well, but this is probably one of the more basic examples. And in fact, I will unpause just so that we can make a little more progress before the video is done. But this is actually something that has also been the subject of a change in Cultist Simulator since it was originally released, because some of the most powerful individuals, things like Azim and King Crucible, among others, these would be things that you'd sort of perpetually summon, and maybe, not quite in the spirit of what was intended. And so now you'll sort of see when these summons go away, they will be on a cooldown, and then you can bring them back. But essentially, it's sort of the same thing. Percussicants are not quite the same unique entities that those others are, and so it's okay to have sort of more than one running around, and it's probably fine to get away with the trick. But if you're doing that with something like Azim, that might be a bridge too far. Anyways, let's go back to the Lodge of the Sage Knight. All right, A Forgotten Chronicle, a story of a city without a gate, of a queen who was not born, of a war which was not fought. Last night, I visited the Lodge of the Sage Knight. My hostess manifested as an elegant woman with fashionably short hair and dark glasses. No, she admits, I don't need them any more than I need eyes. Allow me my sentimentalities. But you've come here for knowledge, I expect. Here's a story that I heard in my Kerisham days. You're welcome to it, only remember me if you come to make the pilgrimage. So in one sense, we don't really need the Forgotten Chronicles, but in another, it is sort of my best access to gaining additional forbidden epics, even if it does come through study. So I don't feel too hard done by trying to, or not trying to, but I don't feel too hard done by getting more of those. So we will go back through the White Door. I'm mildly tempted to actually study some things like Erudition and Glimmering in the study slot, because it's not really doing anything else for me right now. And we did sort of say how having a spare influence around was helpful, excuse me, for the various summonings. So, I think I am going to start stockpiling a few little extra goodies, influences. The other harder one for me is just the idea where I kind of have the materials that I need to be able to level up the lore, but I always kind of like getting them directly from the books. I'm not quite sure why. All right, we've got Key Hunter's Garret, and we go out to another... Wrong one. All right. Not a bad... I mean, I can see why that's actually... I can see why that's why it would want to make that choice first, but... Right now, the hint's just kind of sitting there waiting to be told what to do. My own heart pumps more strongly today. So if I want, I can try and double up this vitality. I don't think it would hurt. Like I said, just having this sit around a little bit longer wouldn't be terrible. Now, I'm going to risk... Actually, I'm going to have to go back to the Gaiety anyway, so no, we will talk with the hint. But at some point, we're going to have to switch the hint and the percussagant. The Wolf Despair prowls elsewhere. And we have Season of Ambition, so we may want to paint away the restlessness. Of course, we can use the restlessness in a summoning as well. However, it's not Nock, so we are going to need to find Nock somewhere else. Okay, so we're in good shape. So as you can see here, it's useful just to kind of keep a timer so you get an idea in terms of what you can give up. So we certainly can't do another summoning because we have got 59.6 seconds left on our contract at the Gaiety. We're certainly not at a point where we want to be painting because that would be premature for the restlessness. Actually, it's also premature for the dance, but at least we can sort of cool down the contract at the Gaiety. So first the thump, the rattle and cry of the ceremonies that attends in the wood. Now here it is, shouldering its way through the world's skin like a clawed and ruthless uncle or a headless flapping bear. So of course, if another way you can think about this is a way that you can get multiple multiple summons on the ground. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to have 2 bodies for my expeditions, and I had a percussagant. There is a way that I could actually get a second summon for, whatever purpose I needed. Now, I do think there's some advantage in some variety, so in this case, I will bring the hint along. The hint, I may not want to have a situation where it sort of proliferates, because there is the fact that it will leave behind something that'll eventually turn into a fascination. But I still would like to preserve, I'd like to preserve my forces, so... Oh, this is funny. Technically, I'm preserving the pre-percussagant. The pre-cussagant. Yeah, I'll try and explain what's going on here in a second. Let's go back to the Lodge of the Sage Knight. Soak up knowledge as a shadow soaks up light. I may be close to advancement. In last night's dream, I was in the Lodge of the Sage Knight behind the White Door. It is difficult to remember exactly how I came there, and the mistress of this place, the woman with the dark glasses, was nodding as if I had asked her a difficult question. Of course, I hadn't. I lost my speech when I passed the White Door. How is it that I can speak, she said to me. I didn't come here through the White Door. I'm not proud of what I did to come here. So let me tell you something else. All right. So again, we got to go to the Gaiety, otherwise we will have some trouble at work. So the stage awaits hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. And we will head straight back to the White Door. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to work with that. Okay, so trying to explain what's going on with this percussagant. This is a different thing than this, right? Notice how this is not yet a follower. So what's kind of funny is because the timer is cooling down, I've got 0.7 seconds before this percussivant actually becomes an entity that that can be used in things like an expedition and that. So the funny thing is that I want to preserve its life anyway. So in this case, I'm just waiting for it to, to transform into the main card. This one will expire, but I mean, it'll expire into hard influence, which will eventually become vitality. So that's not exactly a problem. Fermier Abbey. In fact, what may wind up happening is I may have that thing transform into a regular summon in the next video. If that happens, I'll explain it at the time. My own heart pumps more strongly today. Okay, so there's the Trembling Airs. That's the old percussivant expiring, but again, this one will have 120 seconds when the time comes. Okay, so it's 0.5 now. We were just gonna switch. Oh, right. So here's a great example about where this doesn't work. So again, we've got this entity right now. Okay, shifts over. Now it's actually a percussivant, and you'll see this occasionally. I think the big question that had come up was the what's the deal with the overexposure, and that's basically the same thing here. There are a couple of cards that get primed before they actually before they can be used. Now we're a little off in terms of exotic cravings. We're going to need to wait a while before those become relevant. So we'll just add the passion here. I have more than a listen package of flesh and blood, and we will collect our money from the gaiety and work on summoning the hint. This will be a little bit different from the percussivant, but it's not a catastrophe to do what we're about to do. Felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. Now, I do have a couple of options available to me. I could try and get rid of the restlessness through doing the, through using it in the summoning. I'm a little reluctant to do that because we do have that cooldown on the gaiety already activated. So what I'm going to do here is, this time I'm going to do the Rite of the Crucible Soul. Now this is not guaranteed to work the way that I want it to, but I think the overall risk is tolerable. So it's been a while since we've done one of these. This rite uses an instrument of power to set the blood afire. Fire is the lesion in the skin of the world. The assistant rarely survives unharmed. So 41 seconds left on the hint. So in this case, we're going to add the hint as the victor. The hint as of the victim. Now, if we want, we could basically do the invocation with the knock, or we could use the icon of Saint Agnes. This is, in fact, one of the reasons why I like the icon of Saint Agnes, is because I tend to find instruments are the item that I'm missing the most for the summons that I want. But in any case, so a hint was once a living mortal and then a dead one, and now it's something else. Their summoning requires lantern for the light which drew them to the mansis, and edge for the striving they've endured in mirrors. Now the logic behind this is similar to the percussivant, but the difference is that I'm using the hint as a victim as opposed to the well, okay. The funny thing is I think by using this hint as a victim, it still leaves behind a lantern influence now that I think of it. So I think I'm really just speeding up the time at which the lantern influence comes in. I will double check that with this anyway, but if it does wind up leaving the lantern influence, it's actually still better to do what I did with the percussivant. But in any case, this is a chance to learn. But yeah, so the idea here is that if this winds up being a summoning that resists me and I have to use reason to dismiss it, then I'm down a hint and I don't have the replacement. So there is a little bit of danger. It does look like we are gonna this is gonna turn into a consciousness of radiance. So in future, I'm probably gonna want to use the sunset rite. But anyways. I recall my dream. This was the lodge of the blue silk, flapping in the winds of the bounds at the mansis edge. And here was its mistress, who welcomed me as she welcomes all travelers. Company is nice, she confided, but I still miss my Christopher. 10 years. 10 years and not enough. But we could not have been long together, not without touching each other. And you know what occurs when a man long lies with a long woman. Or perhaps you don't. I hope you don't. I won't tell you just in case. I will give you a timely gift. So there's our glimmering. We are going to go back to the white door one more time. Well, probably more than once actually, but... and I think I'm going to leave it there because we do have a bit of time for the summoning, but you can see we've got 21 seconds left on the exploration. It might be nice to try and get another location, but it's not... Excuse me, sorry, I think I will actually do at least one more exploration because we still have time for the talk verb. But after that, again, depending on the bodies that we can send, we can take, we can kind of clear out the continent, and then I will probably want to be doing the actions that I need for my sending, even if we're going to have at least 3 expeditions that we need to do before we work on the sending. But all that will definitely be happening over the course of the week. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you've been enjoying the videos, or perhaps this is the first one that you've seen and you've not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. If you'd like to get notified about when new episodes come available, there is the little bell beside the subscription button down there. And of course, if you'd like to help support the videos, or if you just want to express your opinion on them, liking and commenting are ways that I'm able to sort of, 1, get to know you all, but number 2, they do help the videos get noticed, which is something that I appreciate tremendously, although I'm sure a number of you already know that I do generally like responding to the comments as well. As usual, tomorrow will be there will not be a video for tomorrow because it should be Tuesday, but we'll be back Wednesday for more Cultist Simulator. Take care until then. See ya.